I'm here because I am a roaring lion crying out righteousness. So finally, after 15th vote, late Saturday night, late Sunday morning, late Friday night, early Saturday morning, they were able to get a Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, finally, right? And Kevin McCarthy says that finally he's got the gavel. Then the first thing he did, he thanked Donald John Tribulation Trump for getting him across the finish line. It was grueling watching what they were doing. I still say that while a lot of people call them terrorists and holdouts and gangers and all kinds of names, I still say that it was important what happened. But Kevin McCarthy is not Speaker of the House. Actually, Donald John Trump is the Speaker. Kevin McCarthy is the mouthpiece. So it's going to be very interesting watching what's going on. In fact, I think the Congress is going to be meeting today or tomorrow, and some of the Republicans are going to try to disrupt the process of Kevin McCarthy's appointment or his winning the gavel. So it's going to be another interesting time. Donald Trump is now really back in Washington in a very powerful way. And first thing Kevin McCarthy did is he went to the rotunda of the Capitol building, and he praised Donald Trump up and down 16th Street, Massachusetts Avenue, Pennsylvania Avenue. Which one? One of them. He praised him up and down Pennsylvania Avenue. How's that? But I think at one point in time, Matt Gaetz, who didn't answer on the 14th vote, went out of the building and then came back at the end and they had to call his name again. Matt Gaetz, who's sitting there beside that woman from out there in, I think she's in Arizona someplace called, where's she from? Lauren Boebert, right? Her. They were sitting there together, two of them. And and so he came back in and this boy, everybody thought he was gonna, vote president or something. He voted McCarthy down again. And so these three, actually, Matt Gaetz has got, actually, well, I'm going to use actually, but Marjorie Taylor Greene is probably physically on the floor in the House of Representatives is the most powerful person. Kevin McCarthy, he gave up everything. I guess he had to do what he had to do, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, but the real speaker, as I'm repeating myself, Pastor Man, you've already said that. Just hold your horses, right? The real speaker of the House is Donald Trump. And Matt Gaetz has got a lot of power too. It's going to be very interesting watching how they try to legislate. Anyway, Mr. Engineer, you got Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem, what kind of name is that anyway? From up here in New York, right? The soul brother. He's a minority leader in the House, right? And I think he's the one who handed the gavel. Nancy Pelosi, I don't know where she's back out in San Francisco someplace. He's the one who handed the gavel to Kevin McCarthy. Take a look at this.
House Democrats will always put American values over autocracy, benevolence over bigotry, the Constitution over the cult, democracy over demagogues, economic opportunity over extremism, freedom over fascism, governing over gaslighting, hopefulness over hatred, inclusion over isolation, justice over judicial overreach, knowledge over kangaroo courts, liberty over limitation, maturity over Mar-a-Lago, normalcy over negativity, opportunity over obstruction, people over politics, quality of life issues over QAnon, reason over racism, substance over slander, triumph over tyranny, understanding over ugliness, voting rights over voter suppression, working families over the well-connected, xenial over xenophobia, yes we can over you can't do it, and zealous representation over zero-sum confrontation. We will always do the right thing by the American people. So let us not grow weary of doing good. For the American people will reap the benefit of the harvest if we do not give up. God bless you, God bless the House, and God bless the United States of America.
Now, you know the boy think he's rapping, right? Here's a guy, he got a law degree from New York University. He graduated summa cum laude, quite frankly. So he got to be pretty smart. And he's rapping in the House. Hey, rapping, hey, over this and there over there, unity over ugliness and moral over Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, these boys rapping. Anyway, it's going to be very interesting. I have to remind you, I think I haven't said this recently, that we are in the tribulation, so you need to know that. And what we're going to see going forward now with Donald Trump, actually, I suggested earlier that Donald Trump they should publicly put his name up as Speaker of the House. You don't have to be a member of the House or representatives to actually be the Speaker of the House. And I don't think it's ever been done, but I think the legislation the Rules Committee allows for someone who's not a member of the House of Representatives to actually be the Speaker. But Trump has now got the hand of Trump has come back to power. This is, it'd be foolish to think that Trump was not going to come back to power. And the reason being is that as I said before, not in a pejorative way, but simply truthful, that the Republican Party is a white shrinking minority in their own land. And so they've really got to change the chessboard in order to maintain power. You can disagree with the fact that they're trying to put in governors and election board people in various states to rule in or rule out elections, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to understand as well that, and again, I don't see. I think what needs to happen is that you need to understand. I'm not speaking with hatred or mean-spiritedness, but white folk are shrinking, so they got to find a way to save themselves from the Democrats and the Democrats with their underlings, black people, and their racists and their legislative, their if you will, reparation legislation for black people. And so white folk have got to find a way to save America in that regard. Now, I'm not taking sides. That's not what I'm doing. I'm explaining to you what is going on. And I have to tell you, they're going to be successful. And the reason why white folk are not going to lose America to Democrats, to people who like to commit abortion, to homosexuals, and to all this legislation for reparations, because the base of what they're doing is unbiblical. America was founded on biblical principles. And the basis of what the Democrats are doing, the basis of, and the support of the systems or the groups that support Democrats are abortionists on demand, abortion, birth control, homosexuality from A to Z. And then, of course, you got all this legislation for reparations in social context. It's unbiblical, first of all. But the other thing is that the proponent of the supporters, the underlings of black people, they are not supportive or substantial enough in order to be able to overcome. So what you're looking at, and the Constitution agrees with this, and I agree with it as well, is that the majority rule. But just because a majority is the majority, don't make the majority right. The ethics of what needs to be voted on needs to first be put in place, and then let the majority vote on the ethics. But even that, not every majority is right. Not every. Just because people are big, got a larger number, it doesn't mean that's justice. However, our Constitution has settled on, who was it said in America, is perhaps our democratic process is about as bad as it gets, except for everybody else. So our Constitution allows our voting principles of majority to rule, but that doesn't always mean that the majority is right. So now what Trump is doing, and what others are now feeling free to do, is to rewrite the Constitution bit by bit. And they may succeed at it because they've got 6 justices now on the Supreme Court that are ready to rewrite the Constitution. They overturned Roe versus Wade, a 50-year, if you will, what had been considered stare decisis law regarding abortion and the Dobbs ruling going back last summer. So what you need to look for is America now completely divided against itself, where you got whites, if you will, Japheths, who are now aligned against whites and blacks. And so we're looking at now a nation divide. So when I see what's going on, and I saw what happened with the whole matter of the election of the Speaker of the House, it's just nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. The thing that Abraham Lincoln warned against is that a house divided shall fall. And that's the purpose of this, that the house shall divide. And the genius of what I've even said for myself that God gave to me, going back a few months ago now, is that Obama, who is the son of Satan, and Tribulation Trump, who is the servant of Satan, that they are fighting one another. And in the power of Almighty God, only God could get those two to fight one another. And that's where you see the equities, or that you see the people who are involved in the battle. They're fighting one another, which will cause America to divide. It is divided. America is divided, my brother, and it's a Humpty Dumpty. You're not going to put America back together. Kevin McCarthy and Nancy Pelosi, or Hakeem Jeffries, or Joe Biden, my time Biden, and nobody else is going to be putting America back together again. And then you got the whole issue. If you want to know, can I tell you what's going on down the border? You want to know what's happening in El Paso? You want to know what's happening on the border? Can I tell you that? If you got a few moments, you got a few moments more? Okay. You're going to say yes, okay, I'll tell you. The Democrats, the abortionists, the homosexuals, right? The slavery reparation group, who call all that makes up the Democrat Party in the urban areas in America, want these migrants to come into America, and then they want to train them to vote Democrat. That's what they want to do, train them to vote Democrat. Now, many of them come from, autocratic nations. They come from nations that govern, at any rate, the Japheth, or white people, or the Republicans rather, don't want these people in the nation because they feel that they're not going to vote Republican. You're not going to turn them, they're not going to accept the Christian values or the social cultural values of white people in America. These immigrants coming up from down in Venezuela, I heard the other day, they're even going to let, that Biden has put together an executive order to let Haitians now come. Listen, they ain't let Haitians come in America since Ponce de Leon. Toussaint Louverture. But now Haitians, if they can make it through Mexico, now Haitians and Haitians not going to vote Republican. You know that. Venezuela, I think there are 4 nations, Venezuelans, Haitians, and 2 other nations are now given carte blanche to come across the border, and they can seek asylum or they can seek citizenship here in America. Because the Democrats, who are the abortionists, the homosexual, the LGBTQ, and the slavery legislation, and then you got the Japheth, the Republican whites. So America's divided. The matter is, and it's going to be a long, hard, knock-down, drag-out fight, starting today perhaps in the Congress. And I'm going to sit back and watch it. We are in the tribulation, and that we need to understand. But Trumpism is spreading around. When I get back, I'm going to talk to you about what's happening down there in Brazil. What happened yesterday in Brazil.